Hi church, it's Pastors Jen and Jacob here with another digital devotion. You know, we were talking recently about how our faith tradition, Christianity, is, Zuzu's chiming in here, is not something that we often think of as radical because in our society, historically, it has been a little bit normalized. But really, the ideas that we subscribe to, the belief system that we profess, is actually countercultural, and I think we see that a little bit in times of crisis like now. So, for example, the idea of being selfless and giving to others is very countercultural to the instinct to hoard and sort of turn inward in times of crisis like this. The idea of believing in something that can't be seen, believing in a power and a divine being that's benevolent and created us out of love is very different than the idea of being in this world to achieve and to find your own purpose and your own meaning sort of by yourself without a connection to something bigger than yourself. So yeah, in a lot of ways, I think we sometimes forget that Christianity was never meant to be mainstream. The people who founded our faith and who originally followed Jesus Christ saw his teachings as radical and outside the box. And I hope we can recapture a little bit of that.
You're right. I think in this country, we forget that because it is very mainstream. It's normal, quote unquote, to be a practicing Christian, and no one would bat an eye at that. And in a lot of ways, what we think of as Christianity in this country is just what our own culture has created, because we've created very comfortable, familiar ways to practice our own faith. And we hear a lot, maybe you've heard in sermons talking about the upside down or the topsy-turvy gospel of Jesus. But it is true that it is kind of upside down, this idea that what you need to get ahead in this world in terms of self-interest and self-preservation, that is contrary to the gospel. And so to think very deliberately about how to give up your own power so you can give it to people who need that power in return, how to do things that actually are not in your own interests. The motto of Austin, Texas is to keep Austin weird. They don't want the mainstream culture to kind of take over and change its unique flavor. Well, we need to keep Christianity weird. We need to make sure that we're not just doing what culture asks of us, but we are actually looking to what Jesus wants from us, which can be countercultural, and it can take us outside of the norm.
Yeah. I think if Christianity were truly mainstream and were lived out in the mainstream public, we would be in a very different society. You know, in theory, everyone would be loving our neighbors, and the world would be, I think, a really ideal place.
You're right. If our culture actually looked like the Christian faith, right, it would be a completely different country.
Yes. But I think it's still something that we can work towards. You know, the idea of bringing the kingdom of heaven or God's reign of peace and justice here and into this existence. I think it's still something that we can work towards and dream about together.
Yeah. So keep Christianity weird, y'all.
Let's close in prayer. Gracious God, we give thanks for our faith, and we give thanks for the fact that it calls us to step outside the norm and to stand up for the teachings of Jesus, which often are radical, even though we sometimes forget that. We ask that you continue helping us live out our faith in today's world. Amen.
Amen.
We'll see you next time.